You're never going to get to a 100% solution or that perfect solution. So the best thing to do is get started. We're looking to increase the access to patients so we can start treating more patients and getting them better faster. If you identify the cancer early on, the survivability of prostate cancer is almost 100%.
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we explore the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands like yours with comprehensive, hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Now, today we are lucky enough to have David Paribello on the podcast. He's a medtech innovator and product strategist who's helped bring life-changing technologies to market. He's a senior product manager, and he's generated over $100 million in revenue while transforming how prostate cancer is diagnosed and treated. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Jules.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on. So I'm curious to find out what got you into, what life journey did you go on to get where you are today in the field that you're in?
Yeah, I've always wanted to make a difference in people's lives. I went into engineering, and out of engineering school, I did a little bit of design work, but decided that just wasn't quite the impact that I wanted to make. I really wanted to be the front line and see how people use the equipment that I was designing and working with, and just see where it gets used and the impact that it's having on their lives, how it changes their lives on a daily basis.
So you're the senior product manager at Promaxo. What drew you from where you were into working with them?
Yeah, it's really about solving real world problems that provide care equity to everyone. It's about trying to give a level set standard of care to everybody, not for just people who can access some of the top surgeons or doctors in the world. We want to try to be able to offer care to everybody in all areas of the world.
Yeah, making a bigger impact is a huge legacy that you could leave behind. Many of those medical devices that you're helping to bring to life are connecting the right people and saving human lives. So how do you make a difference and generate more impact in the world?
I think the main thing is really understanding what the problems are. And again, like I said, it's trying to understand the real world problems and what kind of an impact you can have. And the best way to do that is by asking questions and making sure you're asking the right questions. So that way you can really dig deep, get to the crux of the problem. And at the end of the day, it's about building or creating a solution that's important for the end user. It's not just building something that you think everyone wants. You want to have a problem and then generate the solution for the problem. You don't want to have a solution looking for the problem.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's very needs based. A lot of people do it the other way around. They simply come up with a product that they think that people want, they think that people need. But these are really important things that you're coming up with. So, at Promaxo, you've worn nearly every hat in the company, from marketing, manufacturing, regulatory. What are some of the behind the scenes challenges that you wish more founders knew about helping to build these medtech businesses from the ground up?
I think the biggest aspect that everyone should understand is how everything is interconnected. And it's really important that when you're working with the different departments, you have to realize that you're not siloed. Right? It's good to be focused, but you can't have your blinders on. Knowing how engineering impacts on the regulatory or vice versa, just the same as how sales and marketing might impact one another. And a lot of times people on the engineering team, while they're working behind the scenes, they don't necessarily understand what's happening on the front end of the business. And so what a delay in their timelines might mean to the bottom line in terms of sales, or what kind of an impact it could have on marketing, for example.
Yeah. Absolutely. On an individual basis, as an individual pursuit, that's really good advice. But also when you work with a company, a lot of times there are different brilliant people working together, and they need to come to an agreement on what the next best steps forward are. So what does that kind of compromise look like? How can you work with all these brilliant minds to come together and figure out what the next best steps are?
Yeah. In that sense there, it's really important that you articulate your objectives and priorities. And you have to realize that people are always working with competing priorities, and being able to overcome them. The easiest way to overcome them is by communication and outlining how to best work together, how to best achieve the common goal, and realizing what that common goal looks like at the end of the day.
And then as far as governance is, like, what does that success look like? How is that common goal defined? Like, who gets to be the decision maker? How can you influence, if you are not the key decision maker, how can you influence that to make sure you get the best outcome?
Yeah, again, I mentioned before, understanding the problem, making sure that you know what problem you're trying to solve, and then having data to back it up. So that might mean that you do some kind of voice of customer, you do some kind of a poll, you do some market research, but having the data to back it up, and then showing the impact that it has on the business or throughout the business. So that might be from a sales perspective, it might be from an engineering perspective, it might be from an operational perspective. And that kind of goes back to everything being kind of interconnected.
Yeah. And, as far as the interconnectedness, you've helped bring things to life, taking these new medical technologies from the concept to the commercialization. What are some of the mistakes that you see over and over again that kill momentum too early when people are trying to do this?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that are tied with that. I think the first part is just not getting to the root problem. So partially, again, not having the right questions or asking the right questions. Then number two, and again, they're very, very closely related, is not taking the first step. Sometimes people get so bogged down in the details and or the data, and they just get analysis paralysis, and they just simply don't put one foot forward. And it's important. You're never going to get to a 100% solution or that perfect solution. So the best thing to do is get started, get your solution, your product, or whatever it is you're trying to create into the hands of the users, and iterate.
Yeah. And it does take a lot of teamwork to do exactly that. It takes a team for the companies to be able to create that MVP, that minimum viable product, and get it to the hands of users. What are some of the gaps that you're seeing in medtech teams where they're unable to do that?
The gaps that I think I see is with some companies, you've got people founding companies or founding startups where they're coming right out of, say, college or some kind of educational institute, and they think they've got everything figured out. But at the end of the day, they don't know what they just don't know. And so that gap can be really challenging to try and overcome, and figure out how to put that first foot forward.
Yeah. A lot of startups, they start with that genius idea, but then they don't look for data-driven solutions. So, why is it that brilliant people who have great ideas don't use the data as much as they should be?
I think the biggest thing is because they don't understand the data that's sitting in front of them, or they don't know how to put a story behind it. And when I've helped different companies, that's one of the things, or different businesses, that's one of the things that I try to do is look at the data. What does that mean to me? What does that mean to us? What does that mean to our customers? And use that to take action, or the next actionable step.
Yeah, I think that story is a really big part of it. And not just externally, like this is the story that we're telling about our brand, but in the exact opposite, as you are starting to get iterations and you're starting to get feedback, like real feedback, you can say, hey, this is the story that the data is telling us about what we're able to do and how we're able to help. So how can people really dig into that? How can people create a story from numbers, create a story from data?
That comes from understanding at least the landscape that you're in. So when you're looking at, for example, urology or prostate cancer, that's the space that I'm working in. Knowing what the full scope or the full picture looks like from the urologist perspective, the patient's perspective, and even right down to the insurers or the payer's perspective. What really matters to each of them, and then making sure that we have a data story for each of those stakeholders. So it might be for the patients, trying to get screened and find any potential cancers early on, because if you identify the cancer early on, the survivability of prostate cancer is almost 100%. And so that data alone, that tells one story to the patient. That same data, when you're sharing that with the urologists or the physicians, you want to look at that data, but now you're talking about accuracy. Accuracy matters in trying to find that prostate cancer. Why? Because if you find that cancer early enough, then the survivability of the patient is almost 100%. And then
Yeah.
again, when you look at the payer, trying to find the data that will allow you to treat a patient and get them better, faster, and more accurately. Of course, to them, that means a cost savings to their business.
So for a lot of businesses, that bottom line, that revenue is what's helping to inform their success metrics. But at Promaxo, you're also saving human lives. So what are some of the company goals over the next 12 months?
Yeah, really what we're looking at doing at Promaxo is getting our machine into the hands of more users. We're looking to increase the access to patients so we can start treating more patients and getting them better faster. Prostate cancer continues to rise across the nation, and making sure that we have access, or everyone has access to this life-saving technology. I mean, that's a big priority to us.
So hypothetically, let's just go imaginative here for just a moment. Say you wanted to fix one thing in the business that's holding back growth, that's slowing how to put these machines into the hands of the right people to save more lives. What would you fix if possible?
I think one of the biggest opportunities for us is on the education side of things.
hmm
and and it's educating patients as well as urologists or physicians. What's the benefit of using something like the Promaxo MRI to try and identify and then treat prostate cancer?
hmm
And the way that I approach things really is more of a pull strategy as opposed to a push strategy. I tend to look at the long game, or play the long game, and build out some of those relationships. And the best way to do that, I find, is by showing individuals that I'm that subject matter expert, building the relationship, so that way at any point in time I can pick up the phone and we can talk about what you did yesterday, how your vacation was last week, right down to, hey, I've got a couple of patients who I think can really benefit this from this technology. I'm sure there's patients in your area as well. What do you think?
hmm
And that way it's more of a consultative approach. And I'll tell them straight up, if I don't think this is a good fit for you, then I don't, I'll tell them. But if I think it's a strong fit, and it can work within their practice, within their geography, I guess you can say, or demographic area, then I'll let them know that.
Yeah. So who would you say is the right fit? We've got the viewers, we've got the listeners of this podcast. Who would be the ideal fit to work with Promaxo?
The best group that we've found to work with, honestly, we work with all of them, whether it's a private practice, whether it's individuals with surgery centers or hospitals. We work with all of them. Some of the ones that we've had the early successes with are smaller private practices to date, where they've got an office location. They might be in a major city center, or maybe more of a suburban area. We are seeing traction even in areas that are a little more remote from, or say 2, 3, 4 hours away from the nearest major city.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you absolutely want everybody to have access to the best care, and you don't want, a drive to the city to be the thing that prevents somebody from saving their own life. Right.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can people best connect with you? How can they best connect with the company?
Yeah, the best way is certainly you can visit our website. Our website's got a lot of information about our technology, how it works. We have a patient page as well, so patients can go in there and learn about our technology specifically. And then with that, I always encourage them to go and talk to their doctor.
hmm
And based on that, then the doctor can choose to reach out to us directly, whether it's through our website. We've got, obviously the phone and email, or certainly anyone can always follow along with us on social media as well, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook.
Yeah, fantastic. And all of those links are going to be right down below in the show notes. So if you want to connect, go ahead and look right down below. You can click and connect there. David, thank you so much for your time and expertise. Really appreciate having you on the podcast.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Jules. It was a great time.
Thank you.